Everyone, welcome to my channel Study Time. So today we will start with The Dear Departed by Stanley Houghton. These are the question answers. Question number 6 given in your book is answer the following questions briefly. Number 1 here is how does Mrs. Slater plan to outshine the Jordans? What does it reveal about her character? See, Mrs. Slater was not very happy. She was not very happy with the morning dresses. Morning dresses that she and her family were wearing. In fact, she had ordered new dresses for everybody. However, she thought that her sister wouldn't have thought of morning dresses and so she would outshine them there. Mrs. Slater was a very superficial person. Superficial person hota hai who only thinks about the exterior things, means there is a lack of depth of knowledge. Like if you are judging a book by its cover, you are superficial. So she was a very superficial person. She was not concerned about the death in her family but was more bothered about her appearance and how to be better than her sister. Question number 2 here is why does Mrs. Slater decide to shift the bureau from grandfather's room before the arrival of the Jordans, and how does Henry react to the suggestion? Mrs. Slater always liked grandfather's bureau and after his death she decided to shift it to sitting room before her sister arrived, lest she laid a claim on it. Henry was shocked at the suggestion because he felt that the sisters should amicably divide grandfather's things. Amicably means in a friendly manner or in a peaceable manner. तो peacefully ये सब करें वो ये चाहता था, but Mrs. Slater was not interested. He also felt that it was too heavy and moreover he was worried about the arrival of the Jordans while they were shifting it. Here is what is the reason for the Jordans taking a long time to get to the house of the Slaters, and what does it show about the two sisters' attitude towards each other? Jordans took a long time in getting to reach the Slaters because they had to arrange for the morning dresses for themselves. Since the ready-mades did not work for Elizabeth, Elizabeth is the name of Mrs. Jordans. Okay, she might have to get them stitched, and this shows both the sisters had rivalry between them for every worthless thing. They could not stand each other. They feel that they both are the competitor for each other. So this attitude make them go to any extent that even on their father's death they compete with each other and seek a chance to overshine each other. तो इतनी दुख भरी घड़ी में भी they are not concerned about their father. उन्हें सिर्फ अपनी ड्रेसेस की पड़ी हुई है. They just want to outshine each other. Question number 4 here is what does Mrs. Jordan describes as a fatal mistake? What is the irony in the comment she makes on Mrs. Slater's defense? Mrs. Slater sends for Dr. Pringle as soon as she realizes that grandfather is dead. However, Dr. Pringle could not come as he was out. It was this that Mrs. Jordan describes as a fatal mistake. उसे गलती क्यों कहती है? Because according to Mrs. Jordan, grandfather could have been revived and had Mrs. Slater sent for another doctor. It is this blunder on Mrs. Slater's part that Mrs. Jordan describes as fatal. Now, the second part is the irony in the comment to Mrs. Slater's reply is that she mentions that there are many cases of persons remaining alive even after they were thought to be dead, and later on in the drama grandfather actually becomes restored to life. He become alive. तो इस तरह से जो उसने बहुत पहले ये कमेंट दी थी वो बाद में later in the drama वो सच हो जाती है. So this is the irony in the comment. Question number 5. Ben appreciates grandfather, saying it's a good thing he did. Later he calls him a drunken old beggar. Why does he change his opinion about grandfather? Ben learned that grandfather went in the morning to pay his insurance premium. He said it's a good thing he did, but later when he comes to know from Victoria, Victoria is daughter of Mrs. Slater, and that he had not gone to pay premium but went to meet Mrs. Shorrocks, he commented that he was a drunken beggar. Because शौरभ जो थी वो एक रेस्टोरेंट चलाती थी, it was a kind of pub, and Ben changed his opinion about grandfather when he realized that he hadn't paid premium, because now after his death they could not claim the insurance money. What change does grandfather make in his new will? What effect does it have on his daughters? Grandfather decides to give his property to the one with whom he will be living at the time of his death. This tempts Mrs. Slater and Mrs. Jordan to ask grandfather to live with one of them. However, they get shocked when grandfather reveals that he intends to get married to Mrs. John Shorrocks. तो उनको बताता है कि कमिंग मंडे वो मिसेस जॉन शॉरक्स से शादी करने वाला है. The significance of grandfather's bureau in the play. The bureau, which was also a pricey item held by their father, is significant to how the plot develops because it contained Abel Meriwether's will. उसकी बेटियों को दोनों को नहीं पता था कि उसमें will है, और मिस्टर एबल ने वो विल काफ़ी पहले ही बना दी थी और इट वॉज देयर इन द ब्यूरो. Bureau also told the evil mind of Mrs. Slater. How? Because she picked the bureau from the grandfather's room and put the old chest in the room back. So due to the bureau, grandfather Meriwether knew that his children took him as a burden and wanted to get rid of him. उसको सिर्फ उसके बच्चों को सिर्फ उसकी चीज़ों से प्यार था. अभी वो he just died और वो उसकी चीज़ों पर अपना हक जमाना शुरू कर देते हैं. तो when he comes to know all these things, so he understands that his children took him as a burden and wanted to get rid of him. Question number 8. The character of Victoria is a stark contrast to that of her parents. Justify. See, first of all, stark means what? It's in a total contrast. Because उसके parents कैसे थे, लेकिन Victoria बिल्कुल उनके opposite थी. She is daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Slater. Victoria और Vicky भी उसे कहा गया है in the drama, is a sweet and intelligent 10-year-old daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Slater. जो उसके grandfather थे वो उसे विकी बुलाते थे, and she is the only person in the family who has affection for her grandfather and is upset that he is no more. Victoria is both shocked and delighted when she notices that her grandfather was alive. जब उसे पता चलता है कि grandfather जिंदा है तो उसे खुशी भी होती है, and she does not appreciate the haste and cunningness with which her mother plans to get hold of the clock and the bureau that belongs to grandpa. Her innocence and sense of fairness is in stark contrast to the cold and calculative attitude of her parents. So उसके parents बिल्कुल उससे opposite थे. Thank you. If you like the video, kindly like, share and subscribe. Thank you.